Oh, hello. My name is Salman Hamid, and I'm Assistant Professor of Integrated Science and Humanities at Hampshire College.
I'm Kevin Anderson. I teach courses in film and anthropology at the University of Massachusetts, and this is Film Autopsy. Hello, and welcome to a film autopsy of Martha Marcy May Marlene, new film from writer-director Sean Durkin, starring Elizabeth Olsen and the fantastic John Hawkes. We're seeing him in a number of films this season. The film revolves around the main character. We'll just refer to her as Martha for now. And she is part of this farm collective in upstate New York. And it seems like it has a rather idyllic social setting and, interpersonal relations. And then things kind of must have gone wrong, and we won't tell you exactly what happens. And so then she moves in with her sister and her husband to another idyllic setting, a lake house. And it's summertime, and the sun's out, and there's swimming in the lake. But as the film progresses, the director cuts very seamlessly between the two settings, and he uses pretty much the same color palette for both. And as the film progresses, we see that the social environment of both of these, on the surface, idyllic settings is quite harsh, quite brutal, quite hierarchical. And poor Martha Marcy May Marlene, by the end of the film, really doesn't seem to fit in anywhere.
Yeah, it's a really gripping film, and I like the fact that you mentioned the fact that the two places, both in Connecticut and that lake house, and also the upstate New York, the way the intercutting is seamless, where the same scenes get sort of like starting to play out. You are in one place and then you ended up in the other, and it does not confuse you. In fact, it just adds. This is one of those things that it's not a gimmick for itself, but instead that interweaving helps the story, because the story is the fact of how Martha is feeling between those two places, and equally uncomfortable in many ways. And one way of looking at this film is through the lens of class. Certainly, that's a very clear-cut thing, one you have where people are trying to live. This is a utopian society where people are trying to live, well, we don't need anything. We can all grow stuff here, and we don't need money in many ways. And then on the other side, you have all the luxury of the world, in many ways, everything that you can buy. But then we start seeing the darker underbelly in both instances, and why she fits that. So I really liked the film, but I had a few reservations about it. And one thing I should mention again, it's very hard to talk about it without talking about the ending, but I should mention.
So here we go.
That
we're going to talk about the ending.
Well, I do want to talk about the ending, but not exactly the details of the ending. But I felt, so this is a movie where I was like, when I was watching, the reason I was enthralled by it, because I had no idea how this is going to end. And I was like, whoa, they have the directors and the writers have gotten me into the situation where I cannot imagine how they are going to extricate from this position. And they didn't. The ending was simply, I think they cheated at the end, and that was the only blemish in some sense. There is one more blemish, but that is one of the blemishes of the film. But other than that, I think Elizabeth Olsen is wonderful. Yeah. She is, of course, I don't know how many other Olsens are left.
There's other Olsens, but this one knows how to act.
And John Hawkes is phenomenal. He has been great in Winter's Bone, of course, and then recently Higher Ground, and
small part in Contagion. And he's definitely somebody to keep your eye on.
I really hope he gets a nomination for one of these things, because he is good in every film. And here he just plays this leader, and again, not a cult. I know you'll be upset about the cult leader, but he plays the leader of the farm, the farm leader. It seems like a Boy Scout or something. But he's very charming and menacing at the same time. Really well done.
Well, you brought up one of the lenses through which we can look at this film is through class, and I agree. And then talking about John Hawkes and this character, the other lens I think is most definitely through gender. Mm-hmm. And John Hawkes again performs fantastically. Like you said, he's charming, he's alluring, he is intelligent, and he's manipulative, and he can be brutal. And it's a fantastic, really multi-dimensional performance on his part. One of the interesting things, I think, for Elizabeth Olsen's character is that in both social environments, the farm, and again, yeah, I'm not comfortable. A lot of reviews talk about the farm setting as a cult, and I think that's just that people are being lazy, I think, in terms of describing it, because I don't think it is a cult. Cultish elements, maybe, but anyhow. But then in the lake house setting, there's the brother-in-law. And the brother-in-law and John Hawkes aren't, mirror images of one another. But it's very clear that in both environments, the men are in charge. And in one way, rather informally, and in another one, a bit more directly.
And also, they did the movie, again, and that's what I was trying to say, that it plays with their expectations. I mean, you would think the movie would go in one particular direction, especially when they are in the lake house, and actually it avoids the cliches.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is the good part of it. But one other thing,
blemish?
Well, and that is when you are dealing with, in a sophisticated way, about the class issues, and I think they are doing that. I think instead of making these issues between the farm and the comparison with the lake house truly complicated, I think in some sense they made, again, and I would use the word cult in this case, they basically made it much more clear-cut which side ultimately is better, which I don't think it would have been left open. I think that would have been a slightly better way of dealing with the class issues.
I might have to agree with you.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. After this long pause, he agreed. All right. So
I don't agree with calling it a cult, but I agree. Yeah. Ultimately, yeah. If somebody says, "So you can, now that you've seen this film, you can live in either of these situations," well, yeah, I'd probably pick the lake house.
Oh, I think so. Me too. Yeah. I think we're both with the lake house people. All right. Well, check out the film. Fantastic performances. Vary about a couple of issues, but other than